Hello everyone, welcome to the new video series from PLC Draft to Software. This new video series aims to teach you everything in detail, from what it means to draft in PLC software, understanding what your responsibilities are within this process, and how to carry it out step by step until you have both the documentation and the software itself thoroughly and effectively. To follow along with this video series, I recommend that you have some basic knowledge of electrical controls, a bit of electronics, and some understanding of algorithms. So let's dive into this new video series. And for this new video series, we're going to work a bit with software engineering concepts, because there's no such thing as software without software engineering. That's something we need to have clear in our minds from the start. It's something we need to take as a rule. So I was asked to develop a software, so how do I start? Well, for many people, this is a dream come true. The person really wanted to be an industrial programmer, a PLC programmer. For many others, it was a trap, because they had no idea, and it just landed in their lap. And they have no clue how they're going to do it, how they're going to get started. So, when you're going to be a programmer, what are the responsibilities you have? I'm going to mention the three main responsibilities of a programmer. The first one, you need to create coherent software. Software that can be maintained, not just by you, but by anyone. Because it's coherent, it's clear, it's clean, and it's well structured. The second thing is that you have to make your software your second responsibility. Is that this software must ensure the proper functioning of the equipment, the machine, the production line, according to its specifications, as it was designed, according to its requirements, as it was requested. So you have to ensure the proper operation of the machine, equipment, or production line. And the third responsibility of a programmer is to ensure the safety of people and equipment. These are the three main responsibilities of someone who is going to work in the field. As an industrial programmer, are those the responsibilities of an industrial programmer stop on that? Or a PLC programmer stop on that? No, it not stop on that. Depending on the structure of each company, depending on the professional's experience as their career develops, the PLC professional ends up becoming a leader within the project. He's the one who will identify the problems, who will point out the issues. He's the one who will help the electrical technician solve problems. He's the one who will actively take part in the commissioning. He's the one who will know how things are happening. And that will vary greatly from company to company. Usually the PLC programmer doesn't just program the PLC, he also programs the HMI and the SCADA system. So depending on the structure you are part of, you may have some additional responsibilities. I mentioned the first three because those three are the most important. And because those first three responsibilities, which are ensuring the safety of people, having coherent software, and also making the machine operate correctly, are essential. You need to create software that meets expectations and ensures the machines function properly. These are the three main ones, but depending on the company you work for, you may end up taking on additional responsibilities. When it comes to programming, that even includes creating documentation. And now that you know your responsibilities as a programmer, where do you start? Well, the first thing to do is gather as much information as possible. You'll look for the electrical schematic, a sequence of operations, and the project requirements, because all of that is important. You'll try to gather as much information as possible so you understand exactly what you're dealing with. Keep in mind that this information gathering gives you insight into the process. One interesting fact is that many PLC programmers specialize in certain processes and projects. Some only know how to programming welding cells, others have a focus on palletizing systems, some only works on paper machines, and there are professionals that only programming boilers. And these people become very skilled in the process, which also makes programming easier for them. This happens a lot. Professionals become not only PLC specialists, but also process specialists. And there's a guy who does everything, who handles any process, because he can gather information, he understands, and comprehends that he needs to seek knowledge outside of that process. And he ends up being able to perform his task. Once he has managed to collect the information, put it together coherently in documentation, and developed the software in the way it was needed. So how do we gather the information? Well, the first thing you're going to do is go to the person who requested the software. The person who came to you and said, look, you're going to develop the software for this machine. That's the first step. There's really no way around it. That person is your first contact, first channel. And from there, you're going to have to ask some basic questions. For example, what is the process? What are the basic assumptions? What are the project requirements? Is there already an electrical schematic? Is there already a functional diagram, a flowchart, or any other type of documentation that can help you when it comes time to develop your software? What are the critical points to be considered carefully and thoroughly by the team that developed the application, the production line, in the entire process? The project itself. What are the points you're going to find within it? Those that are extremely critical for safety. This is very important to assess. What the interfaces you will have. You will have an HMI, a supervisory system, bunch of indicator lights with buttons only. What will your interaction with the operator be like? What will your interaction with the machine be like? What are the standards you'll need to follow, and what are the existing standardizations within the company? In addition to the official standards, sometimes the company has its own PLC programming standard. That's something you need to take into account. What platform are you going to use? Siemens, Rockwell, Schneider, Omron, Beckhoff, whatever manufacturer you're going to use. And if there is a pattern, even in documentation and programming, and if this pattern has documentation, or they will only give you an example of the software. The software is an example of what our standard software looks like, but it doesn't have documentation. It will be harder, but it's something you need to ask about. Notice that in the questions I just mentioned, you dealt with project management people, application people. You'll probably have to go after someone from mechanics, such as, depending, of course, on the type of process you're going to program. You've already looked into the electrical design. All of this is because those who develop software end up poking into everyone's area. You'll even poke into occupational safety to find out if they're going to apply anything specific from OSHA, if they have any specific requests regarding the safety of an area that you need to define. Your safety matrix, so you can determine what your safety concept will be within the machine or the production line. So what happens? The PLC programmer is the tip of the spear. He's the one who will really be dealing with everyone, interfacing with everyone. So it's very important that you're able to gather information from everyone involved in the project. And this information gathering can be done in various ways. You can look at the documents themselves. In the diagrams that were generated, such as meeting minutes, you can create questionnaires, for example. You can hold meetings. The project charter, for example, contains some project assumptions that will be important for you. And then there's something, when we talk about gathering information, we're talking about requirements gathering. When we talk about requirements gathering, we're talking about the first very important step in software engineering, which is requirements analysis. So, once again, there's no way to build software without software engineering, without having this knowledge. You have to elicit your requirements, then you'll have to detail your requirements, and you'll have to organize them in a way that creates proper documentation. And key to be able to program. Understanding the process, is it possible to proceed without gathering requirements? Well, there are a lot of people in the market, a lot of people out there who think gathering requirements is a waste of time, right? I know a guy who says, we're programmers, we just fire up the machine and let it go. Meanwhile, he is unemployed with no work, while the guy who knows how to gather requirements knows how to stay organized, the guy who knows how to collect information and code, he's still employed, no crisis. This is a reality for PLC programmers, because the person came from a world where they used to make jumpers and get the machine running. Suddenly, they became a programmer. They didn't realize they would become a programmer. And he thinks doing everything any which way is fine, no problem. As long as it runs, it's all good. So he gets a customer who has better knowledge, who wants to ensure that their maintenance team has clean, coherent software that can do what's necessary, that everyone can maintain, and doesn't accept software from that guy. And this guy ends up out of the market. And it's very hard to understand the process if you don't gather requirements. You'll end up programming based on guesswork, thinking you're doing one thing, but it won't match the actual needs, and you'll have to redo it. Rework means losing money. Nobody wants that. You've wasted time and money, and no one is going to want that. So there's no such thing as understanding the process and programming without gathering requirements. Another point is that if you didn't gather requirements, you didn't truly understand the process. You're just guessing. If you don't understand the process, you won't be able to fulfill your basic responsibilities. First, you won't be able to ensure safety. That's the most important thing of all. Second, you won't create a coherent piece of software because you're starting to fix it to make it run as it should. And one thing that's clear is that you'll never create software that actually works according to the project specifications, project expectations, as everything was planned to work. So you didn't meet the basics, couldn't code, weren't a real programmer. And just to reinforce this, so you get an idea, the IEE, Haven, they have a standard. For those who don't know, IEE is the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. They have standards for software development. They have standards for software documentation. And they have a standard in the field of standards referred to as 610.12/1990, which is actually the glossary, and it clearly states in detail what the requirement is. So just so you have an idea, this doesn't come from me, it comes from something bigger, it comes from the IE. Do you understand? It comes from serious organizations, so there's no way around it. There's no... This idea of, oh, I did it without gathering requirements. That's actually a lie. Various automotive standards, for example, already have all the requirements gathering done behind the scenes. They already have an entire software engineering process in place. He forces you to do things, and those are software requirements. They organize them so you can't escape. You're programming a requirements gathering without knowing it. You lack the knowledge as you didn't seek it. Did you get it? You know there's a requirement to turn a key and press a button to switch the machine to manual mode. That's a requirement for entering manual mode. You are going to turn here and press the button. You're programming without even knowing it. You raised the requirement and didn't even realize it. Ignoring theory hinders professional growth. It's knowledge you need to have. This is the first video we're talking about. We talk a little about requirements gathering and we touch on our responsibilities. In the next video, we'll talk a bit about techniques for gathering requirements so that we can finally start putting together our document. So follow the series and we'll see you in the next videos.